Welcome to Ewedu Excellence, where we spotlight Yoruba legends who shaped Nigeria and the world. Today, we dive deep into the extraordinary life of Chief Obafemi Awolowo, the sage of Hikenal, a philosopher, nationalist, and political genius whose ideas shaped modern Nigeria. Prepare for a journey through his rise, struggles, victories, and undying legacy.
Early life and education.
Obafemi Awolowo was born on March 6, 1909 in Hikenal, Ogun State. He lost his father at age 10, which plunged his family into financial hardship. But the young Awolowo was resilient. He attended Wesley College, Ibadan, then worked as a teacher, clerk, and journalist. But his ambitions went beyond survival. In 1944, he traveled to the UK to study law at the University of London and qualified as a barrister in 1946.
Return to Nigeria and political awakening.
Returning to Nigeria in 1947, Awolowo was not just a lawyer, he was a man on a mission. He founded the Egbe or More Odaduwa, a Yoruba cultural group, which would soon evolve into a political force. By 1951, he established the Action Group AG, a party focused on regional autonomy, free education, and economic development in the Western region. He became the premier of the Western region in 1954 and changed the region forever.
Transformation of the Western region.
Before Lagos glittered, there was a time when Western Nigeria stood as Africa's shining light, a region that built Africa's first television station, a region that introduced free education, a region powered by vision, discipline, and cocoa wealth. At the heart of that transformation stood one man, Chief Obafemi Awolowo. In the 1940s, Nigeria was a British colony, and the Western region, made up largely of Yoruba-speaking areas, was under colonial rule. Infrastructure was poor, access to education was limited. Most people worked in agriculture with little hope of social mobility. But Awolowo, a trained lawyer and brilliant thinker, had a plan. He founded the Action Group in 1951, built on the ideology of democratic socialism, federalism, and Yoruba unity. That same year, he became the premier of Western Nigeria. What followed was an era of innovation and national awakening. January 17, 1955, Awolowo launched Africa's first free primary education program. It was revolutionary. Over 400,000 children enrolled immediately. Schools sprang up across towns and villages, in mud huts, churches, community centers. Teachers were trained at an accelerated rate. Despite colonial resistance and opposition criticism, Awolowo insisted, any investment in the education of our children is an investment in our national greatness. Impact. Literacy rates surged. Emergence of educated middle class. Women and girls gained new access to learning.
Free healthcare initiative.
Alongside education came free healthcare for children and subsidies for pregnant women. New clinics were built in towns and rural communities. Traditional and Western medical practices were integrated. Infant mortality dropped significantly across the region.
Infrastructure and communication revolution.
Western Nigeria became a hub of modern infrastructure. New roads and bridges. Electrification of towns. Establishment of WNTV, the first television station in Africa, launched in 1959. Through WNTV, Awolowo spread civic education, cultural programs, and national pride, using media as a tool for social engineering.
The cocoa economy.
How was all this funded? Not by loans, not by foreign aid. The engine of development was cocoa. Under Awolowo, the Western region's cocoa marketing board reinvested profits into public infrastructure, not private pockets. Cocoa farmers were empowered. The rural economy grew. And for a time, the region became financially self-sufficient.
Classical building # civic and cultural renaissance.
Awolowo also promoted Yoruba identity, values, and civic pride. Adult literacy programs, book translations, and festivals were launched. He championed Oduduwa heritage, not as a tribal bias, but as a foundation for African dignity. University of Ife now OU. In 1961, Awolowo's government founded the University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University OU. His goal, an institution that would combine academic excellence with Yoruba cultural grounding. It quickly became one of Africa's most respected centers of learning.
Challenges and legacy.
His tenure wasn't without controversy, factionalism within the action group, and a split with his deputy Ladoka Kintola led to a political crisis. Yet, despite his eventual imprisonment, Awolowo's reforms endured. The Western region continued to lead Nigeria in education, healthcare, and development. Today, Chief Obafemi Awolowo's impact is still felt. In every school child given a fair shot, in every farmer uplifted by good governance, in every Yoruba son or daughter who walks tall with pride, he proved that a leader with vision and discipline can lift an entire people. His legacy, more than buildings or slogans, it's a living inspiration for Yoruba, Nigeria, and for all of Africa. He was the most visionary leader of his time, yet he never became president. A man who gave the West education, yet was accused of treason. This is the story of Chief Obafemi Awolowo and his stormy journey through Nigerian national politics. A story of ambition, betrayal, brilliance, and a nation still chasing his dream.
Entering national politics.
In 1952, after cementing his legacy in the Western region, Awolowo set his sights on the national stage. He became leader of opposition in the federal parliament, the first in Nigeria's history. While Sir Tafawa Balewa of the Northern People's Congress NPC held power as prime minister, Awolowo led the Action Group AG, a party rooted in federalism, modernization, and secular progress. But the ideological lines were deep. Awolowo wanted regional autonomy and rapid reform. Balewa and Ahmadu Bello leaned toward conservative, centralized leadership. Friction was inevitable.
Regional rivalries and power struggles.
The West began to fracture. Awolowo's once loyal deputy, Samuel Ladoka Kintola, split from him, siding with federal forces. The result, political chaos in the Western region, violent scenes in parliament, and a major power vacuum. The federal government declared a state of emergency in the West in 1962. Awolowo blamed the central government, accusing them of interfering with democracy. Meanwhile, accusations began to swirl.
The treason trial.
In 1963, Awolowo was arrested and charged with plotting to overthrow the federal government, a coup through underground military alliances. The trial was highly publicized and deeply political. Despite his strong defense, Awolowo and his allies were convicted. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Many Nigerians saw the trial as politically motivated, a tactic to silence a powerful voice of opposition. The 1966 coups and national collapse. While Awolowo sat behind bars, the military struck in 1966. The coup was bloody and divisive. Prime Minister Balewa, Premier Ahmadu Bello, and Akintola, all killed. Power shifted quickly to the military. But Nigeria was now a fractured federation, filled with mistrust.
Awolowo's redemption.
In 1967, General Yakubu Gowon, facing the threat of national breakup, reached out to the man once jailed as a traitor. Awolowo was released and appointed Federal Commissioner for Finance and Vice Chairman of the Executive Council. His economic brilliance came into full view, stabilized the economy during the Biafran War, prevented Nigeria from borrowing externally, ensured food supply despite conflict. He famously declared, "A war can be won without borrowing a kobo."
Presidential ambitions denied.
As democracy returned in 1979, Awolowo made his boldest move yet. He ran for president. His campaign was detailed, modern, policy-driven. But in an election riddled with controversy, he lost to Shehu Shagari of the NPN. Many believed the vote was rigged, that the system could not allow a man like Awoism to rise. In 1983, he tried again, and lost again. With that, he retired from politics, never having held the nation's top job, despite being arguably the most prepared man for it.
Ideas that outlive the man.
Awolowo left behind a legacy of ideas, not just politics. He envisioned a true federal structure, social welfare for all, education as a right. His quotes echo even today. Nigeria is not a nation. It is a mere geographical expression. His political rivals may have beaten him at the ballot, but his philosophy still shapes Nigeria's intellectual elite. Chief Obafemi Awolowo never became president, but he became something far more lasting, the conscience of a nation, the author of its most daring dreams. Nigeria may still struggle with unity and justice, but in the words of the sage, the seeds of greatness are already here, if only we choose to water them. In the early 1960s, Nigeria was a young republic, full of hope, but simmering with political tension. Awolowo was the leader of the opposition in Nigeria's federal parliament. He had been the premier of the Western region 1954 to 1959 and head of the Action Group Act. In 1959, he contested to become Nigeria's first prime minister, but lost to Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. Many believed tribal politics, colonial interference, and internal party issues played a role. Awo's rise wasn't without resistance. His party clashed with the northern-dominated NPC and the eastern NCNC. Awolowo pushed for federalism and regional autonomy, ideas that others feared would divide the country. As Nigeria returned to civilian rule in 1979, Awolowo ran again for president under the Unity Party of Nigeria (UPN). His manifesto emphasized free education, free healthcare, and rural development. He lost to Shehu Shagari, but Awo remained a moral compass and the most respected opposition figure in Nigerian history. In 1962, he was arrested and later convicted of treason for allegedly plotting to overthrow the federal government of Prime Minister Tafawa Balewa. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison after a controversial trial. It was a dark time, but from behind bars, Awo remained intellectually active, writing books like Thoughts on the Nigerian Constitution and the People's Republic. Awolowo's vision for a united, progressive Nigeria was put on hold, but not forgotten. On January 15, 1966, a group of mainly Igbo military officers staged Nigeria's first coup, killing Prime Minister Balewa, Northern Premier Ahmadu Bello, and Western Region Premier Ladoja Akintola, Awolowo's political rival. The coup was not led by Awolowo, nor was there any solid evidence he had knowledge of it beforehand. However, many Nigerians, especially in the north, believed that the coup was meant to pave the way for Awolowo's release and return to power, given that many of those killed were his political enemies. After the counter-coup of July 1966, Major General Yakubu Gowon became head of state. The military took over, and General Yakubu Gowon released Awolowo from prison. He was made Federal Commissioner for Finance and Vice Chairman of the Executive Council, essentially Nigeria's deputy head of government. Gowon, recognizing Awolowo's intellect and integrity, this move was strategic. Awolowo was seen as a stabilizing figure. During the dark years of the Biafran War, it was Awo who managed Nigeria's economy, ensured food supply, and held the currency together. Awolowo managed Nigeria's finances and advocated for fiscal responsibility. His controversial support for the blockade strategy against Biafra remains debated to this day. His brilliance in managing the economy kept Nigeria afloat during wartime. While there's no credible evidence that Awolowo had a role in the coup, various conspiracy theories have persisted, especially from regions affected by the coup. Some accused him of benefiting politically from the events. Others argued that his imprisonment before the coup absolved him of any actual participation. Historians generally agree Awolowo was a victim of political persecution before the coup and a stabilizing force after it. Awolowo himself always denied involvement in any coup and remained committed to democratic socialism, federalism, and nonviolence throughout his life. The truth: Awolowo did not plot the 1966 coup. He was in prison, stripped of power, but not purpose. But when the nation was on the brink, he returned, not as a conqueror, but as a steward of stability. Obafemi Awolowo was more than a politician. He was a thinker. He promoted democratic socialism, federalism, and the use of indigenous languages in education. His books, debates, and interviews remain must-reads for any serious student of Nigerian politics. In politics, perception is power, but history demands truth.
Death and national recognition.
Chief Awolowo passed away on May 9, 1987. The nation mourned. Even political rivals praised his integrity, intellect, and foresight. He was posthumously honored with the Grand Commander of the Federal Republic (GCFR), and several institutions bear his name: Obafemi Awolowo University, the Awolowo Foundation, and numerous streets and monuments. Chief Obafemi Awolowo lived not just as a Yoruba leader, but as a Nigerian visionary. He fought for justice, equity, and development, values we must reclaim today. It is better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one, than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Ewedu Excellence for more inspiring stories of Yoruba greatness. Leave a comment. What is Chief Awolowo's greatest legacy in your eyes?